make sure that you put all of your questions into the chat area, and we have Terry Milroy from Southside, Forrest Smith from Germanna, Gannon Orberg from Lord Fairfax, David Todd from the System Office, Melissa Stiltner from Southwest. We have many more people that are in that chat area to help you all with any questions that you have. So I'm going to wait just one more minute, and then I am going to begin. If you are having any kind of trouble with delays or weird sounds, or your screen seems to be frozen, sometimes it helps if you do turn off your video. That does sometimes help with on my end as well. All right, let's begin. So today we're going to go over modules, pages, and activities. Oh my. My name is Paige Durham, and I am the instructional designer at Germanna Community College. And if you need to find me, you can find me at pdurham@germanna.edu. And again, I will mention that we have a lot of people in our chat area to answer any questions that you may have while the presentation is going on. So our agenda for this afternoon, we're going to talk about modules, doors, and organization, pages, focusing the content and chunking, activities, types of learner interaction, active learning, and then we're going to get to the oh my. All right, so before I begin, I'd like to go over a brief recap of writing effective objectives. So last week we had the webinar on objectives, and some of the things that were covered are listed on this slide. So you want to make sure that your module objectives are always consistent with your course objectives. And they should be very specific, observable, measurable, and should be written from the learner's perspective. And you also want to think about making sure that those objectives are written in a language that the learner knows mostly before the course begins. Some things, you know, some terminology will be learned during the course, but for the most part, you need to think about writing them in language that they knew before they get to you. Also, you want to make sure that they're easy to find everywhere in your course, and you want to think about module objectives being the base of everything that your course is designed upon. So let's begin with some modules. So to module or not? Well, that's a really big question, and since our transition from Blackboard to Canvas, we've really had to rethink about how we structure all of our courses. So modules, for the purpose provide consistency. It shows progression. It's a kind of a one place for everything. It lessens the need for mapping. So, you know, go here and do this, and then go there and do that. And what does that all mean? Fewer questions from students. Okay, so too many doors? What does that mean, right? Canvas organizes all of the tools differently. So discussions are ordered by time of most recent comment. Assignments are in a list in the order created unless they are grouped. Files are grouped in folders that you build, otherwise there is no organization. Quizzes and discussions appear on their own tool page, and the assignments tool has assignments, quizzes, and graded discussions, and that is just too many doors. One thing before we go any further, please remember that we will take attendance at the end. All right, let's keep on going. Module organization. So there's two ways to think about modules. So we're going to talk about a short version, which is basically a module header, and then an overview of the module, which includes a reading list, related videos, links to related websites, descriptions, and any other handouts or all that material. And then you probably have a more information on the module, so that'll be additional things. You don't want to overwhelm students with too much on the first page. And then you want to have a discussion, and then included in that would also probably be an activity as well as an assessment. Long version is that broken down into each specific item having its own page. So there would be a page for overview, there would be a page for readings list, there would be a page for videos, there would be a page for module content, there would be a page for more information, there would be a link to relevant websites, and then each of those would be their own separate page. So here's your first poll questions. Why might you choose one method over the other? In other words, why might you choose short modules as opposed to long modules? So that's the question. And I actually will show you so here are some answers that are coming in. Doesn't overwhelm students. Small victories. These are excellent answers. And I'm great that, you know, again, doesn't matter which one you choose, it's choosing whatever works for you and depending upon your specific content. Okay, now what does it look like inside of Canvas? So let's go take a look. When you get to your Canvas dashboard, you are going to pick the course. This is an activity you're going to do in just a moment, but we're going to walk through the process right now. So here we are, and let's take a look at the modules area. And so this is just a very short idea of what a Start Here module might look like. And in the Start Here page, I will show it to you. There are items to complete. So, and it also, if you notice, gives the students a countdown, what to do, and then get started right away. So now let's go back and take a look at the short and long modules. So we have the short version of week 1, and then we have the long version, week 2. Again, you can see that they're not extremely long, but they do each hold their own special purpose, which for the students, again, it helps them figure out what's coming next, and it also keeps them inside of one place in Canvas and not jumping around all over everywhere to figure it out. So in the next activity, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm actually going to ask you to create a new module, and you can decide how you're going to title your modules. Are you going to call them weeks? Are you going to call them units? Are you going to call them modules? And then you're going to keep that naming convention consistent throughout your course. When you've created that new module, you're going to put in an overview page, and then just put in a blank discussion, and you can call it discussion for however you choose to call your module. So let's go over how we do that. Actually, I'm just going to do it real quick. So you're going to pick a week or a module. You're going to click on page, new page. You're going to give it an overview. You don't have to worry about putting anything in there just yet. Just put the placeholder in for, and then also put in a discussion. And again, just put in a basic placeholder. All right, so let me pop back over. And here is your activity. So you're going to go to a spring, a summer, a sandbox somewhere, and you're going to evaluate how you have organized your modules previously. Then you're going to think about how you want to think about this in the future, short or long version. Then I want you to figure out whether you want to have how you're going to title your modules, create a new module, put in an overview page, and create a discussion. And then you don't have to worry about doing anything else to that. That is your first activity. And at the bottom right of this screen, you're going to see a 3-minute timer that will count down. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to complete this activity. Ready, set, go. Okay, great. I hope everybody was able to get that module started. Now let's keep on going. All right, so pages. Now we're going to talk about what goes in the module in detail. So we're going to talk about focusing the content, avoiding information overload, and need versus nice. So chunking, and of course the theory that more is better, more is not better. So you want to think about what is the scope of the module? What are you talking about in this module? What is the focus? Make it as manageable as you can by thinking in terms of what do I need to give the students to help them meet that objective. So you're going to ask yourself the following questions. What do the learners need to do? And is this content necessary for the learners to be able to do what they need to do. And this is where the need versus nice comes in. Then you're going to think about, okay, so now you've gotten it narrowed down, and now you're going to think about chunking it. So again, both of those modules, both short and long, still involved chunking, and that was in how you put things on the page, of course. And you also want to think about how long are your students going to interact with that material. So if you have a video that is an hour long, is that something that students are probably going to sit and watch in its entirety? Most likely not. So you're going to want to think about chunking all of your content, your readings, your videos, and your activities. So learners can handle short-term memory process and integrate them into long-term memory if you present things multiple times in those chunks. So a chunk is something that can stand alone, but it should also be linked to other chunks. I kind of like to think about that as a Hershey bar, because you know the Hershey bar has the little dividers. You know, you can have one little chunk of the Hershey bar, but you could have the whole Hershey bar, but one little piece could stand alone. But of course, when you put it all together, it's a much better Hershey bar. All right, so now we're going to talk about those instructional resources that are going to go on those pages. So are you going to use your own existing content that you've had, or are you going to create something new? And is that content going to be graphics, videos, podcasts, audio recordings? And then you got to think about copyright. Are you going to use Creative Commons? Are you going to use Canvas Commons and fair use? And then you want to think about, is the content that you're choosing means to an end and not the end? And also remember that variety is the spice of life, and learners are all very different. So if you present all of your content in one form, let's say reading, you're going to have a lot of students who are going to struggle if that is not their preferred way of taking in content and understanding things. You're also going to want to think about things from various perspectives. So you're not going to want to narrow yourself down to the point where you're only thinking about things in one way. The more ways that you can present to your students, the better off they will be and the faster they will learn. Page, what's on a page? Well, Canvas pages can put pretty much anything that you could possibly think of on a page. So, and the key to that is the rich content editor. Now, let's go take a look at back at the Canvas course. So right now, we're going to talk about that webinar toolkit that you were sent. So let me pop back over to my other screen. All right, here we are back in Canvas. And now I'm going to take you to the toolkit. So this is the toolkit link that you were sent. Should have looked something like this if you clicked on it. And this is activity 2. So you're going to click on this link. And when it opens, it's just a blank bunch of text. So I want you to, you're going to copy that text and you're going to put it into your overview page. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So, well, maybe. There we go. It's going to ask you if you want to make a copy. Just click yes. And here we are with the sample overview. So now what I would do is I'm just going to take my cursor, and sometimes I start at the bottom and go all the way up. Sometimes I start at the top and go all the way down, and highlight all of that. And then I'm going to click copy, and you can choose to use your keyboard, Control-C, and I'm going to pop back over to Canvas. Now for the purpose of this activity, I'm just going to click on this overview page 3. And I'm going to click edit. And once the rich content editor opens, I'm going to paste what I copied from the Google Doc. Now, The key to this activity is you want to make sure that you structure the page. Although this is not terrible, it could look much better. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to start up here at the top, and then you're going to use the following in order to make this a structured document. So I'm going to choose heading 3 for this, and I'll be honest with you, this start page overview page would probably work better as a table. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on table, and I think that's right. And again, I'm just going to choose to use copy and paste to put these things into the table. I'm just going to do a couple. So that basically I'm creating more structure within the page by putting this stuff in a table. And so on and so forth. And then I'm going to, once I get all that stuff in there, I'm going to go down here, and I'm also going to change objectives and make that a heading 4. And then I'm probably not going to do much anything else. Now, within this page, at the bottom, this is where you're going to think about adding some images. So for example, I would like to add an image under the sample overview. So I'm going to click on Upload Image. If you have an image already, that's great. If you don't, you can always use Unsplash. And I will just call this overview and see what we get. I like this one. I'm going to choose that, and I'll click Submit. Now, this is obviously a very large picture, so I can just take the corners and resize, and I can put it in the center. Well, evidently it didn't like that, so there we go. You're going to add a couple images. There is a YouTube video in the webinar toolkit as well. So if you right click on the link, you can copy link URL. Now I'm going to go back over to Canvas, and I'm going to put this video at the bottom. And I'm going to choose external link. And I can put the link in there, and then I'm actually going to put the text in. And now the video is in. There's another way to do that as well, but for now that's going to work. And you can put in an external link if you choose, but I just actually put that video in as an external link. And if you have a studio video, you can add that as well. Please do as much of this activity that's coming up as you possibly can. Again, you will have access to the slide deck afterwards, as well as a recording of the webinar. In a few days, it will appear on the edtech.vccs.edu website. So this is activity 2, and this went over most of the steps. Again, there are a lot more steps, so please feel free to pick and choose of this activity what you can get through in 3 minutes. If you have any questions, remember we have a fabulous group of people in the chat who can help you out. Again, here's your 3-minute timer at the bottom. Ready, set, go. Great. I hope you were able to at least do one of the items listed in activity 2. Again, you can always come back to the slide deck at a later time and complete all of the activities if you want to practice. All right, let's go on. So kind of to summarize, ask yourself the following questions about content. What do my students need to know to successfully meet the learning objective? What types of content will students use to learn what they need to know? What does the content have interaction built in? And is the content accessible? And have I checked for any copyright issues? Now we're going to talk about activities, different types of interaction, and active learning. So what are the different types of interaction? When you're creating and you're doing your course, now that we're all in the online world, you need to think about 3 different types of interaction: student to content, student to faculty, and student to student. So examples of student content are listed: tutorials, quizzes, reading videos, and simulations. Student to faculty, feedback on assignments, participating in discussion forums, online office hours, mentoring, working with small groups of students. Student to student, group projects, peer interaction, collaborative brainstorming, etc. So which is better? End of the unit quiz or self-checks? Video or video with non-graded questions embedded? Concept mapping or raw data in the table form? So when you're thinking about this, one assessment that measures the objective, if there's no practice for the student, are they really going to get the content? So having those self-checks so that students can see what it is they're not quite getting, and it also gives you an idea of what needs to be reinforced. Again, watching a video on its own or watching a video that has questions that they have to answer while they're watching it. So they're having that interactivity with that video and it's not just a screen talking at them. And concept mapping, drawing it all out, instead of just looking at lots of numbers on a spreadsheet. So more ideas would be gamification, virtual reality, social polling, just like we're doing here with our Slido, scavenger hunts, web quests. All of those things are other ideas for student to content interaction. So now let's take a look at Canvas. All right. Here we are back in Canvas again. And think about this. This is going to be where you're going to call this your module materials. So what do they need for that learner to content interaction? So you're going to think about things like publisher materials, PowerPoints, videos, video lectures. So let's take a look at a completed page. So here's an example of a completed module material page. It's called more information, can be called module materials, whatever, but it contains readings, and all of these, of course, are hyperlinks that take them to external websites. This is a slide presentation that they can view right from within Canvas. They don't have to go out. They can advance the slides however they want to. Again, you can leave a spot here for lectures. So if you're doing a Zoom and you want to record it, you can let them know that when it's finished, they can find it here. And then you have videos that, if they're studio videos or they're YouTube videos or whatever they are, they can be put in and students will know how to find them. So I'm going to give you another, a little bit of time here to think about your module materials and think about how you want to organize them and what is it going to look like to the student. So now it's time for activity number 3. You're going to go back to your sandbox. And again, you can call the module materials, or you can call it more information. And then you're going to think about what do you need to provide the learner, to have that learner content interaction. And again, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and I'm going to say ready, set, go. All right, let's keep on going. All right, so we talked about student to content. Now, student to faculty, which is better? Course announcements or private email messages? Recorded lectures or live class webinars? Comments or video feedback? Discussion board as a watcher or responses in an announcement? So thinking about those course announcements and private email messages, they both have their place. But to really build that teacher presence and make sure the student understands that they can reach out to you, then both of them are appropriate. Recorded lectures when class is not present versus a live class where you might record it. Again, you perform differently when there's an audience present. So when you're thinking about doing your lectures, think about doing them in small chunks and having students there, and even recording them so that they can go back and watch them, as well as you can go back and review, you know, what you went over. And then thinking about video feedback. So there's the feature in SpeedGrader that allows you to leave video feedback on submissions for students, not just written comments. And then a discussion board watcher, someone who never participates, and you know, you're watching the students, did they do their posts and blah, blah, blah. or thinking about responding in an announcement. And you can say, you know, this week there were several people who brought up these ideas in the discussion board, which lets the students know that you're not just watching, but you're really paying attention to what they're writing. Some more ideas, live questions in Zoom sessions, feedback sessions on papers, you know, do a whole webinar on just feedback. Using all the announcements and using things that are make you personable, whether it's a Bitmoji, an avatar, things like that. Thinking about allowing students to do draft papers and really providing them with rich feedback, and also providing just a plain old FAQ discussion board. Now let's pop back over to Canvas. So now we're going to talk about adding something that's already created. So I'm going to go over here and click on the Canvas Commons. And these activities were actually mentioned in the toolkit as well. So this is a way you can get your students involved, and you can start building right off at the very beginning of the semester that student to faculty interaction and building your teacher presence. So in the search bar, you're going to type in ask a question discussion. And you give it a second. And now you can see that, well, wait a minute, there we go. You can see that there are lots. And I'm going to pick one from my buddy here, Gannon, who's actually in the chat answering questions. And I'm going to click on import. And I'm going to import this into my training sandbox and click import. All right, so now that it successfully has started, so it does take a minute. So I'm going to pop back over here to my dashboard. And wait. There we go. And that was not what I clicked on. I think I overestimated the speed of my click. I'm going to let everything load this time before I click on anything. There we go. Okay, so how do you create a draft? And you can create a draft using Turnitin, so that not only do you provide feedback, but Turnitin can provide feedback. So I'm going to go down here to my short module, and I'll click on new assignment, and I'll click on draft. Click add. And now here I am going to edit this. And I already had this up because I didn't want to have to waste time. So I'm just going to put this assignment in here really fast. And here, add a little interactive video from my studio. And I've got a little video, and that's, now I'm going to scroll down here a little bit farther, decide how many points I want it to be worth. I'm going to make sure that this is an online submission, and it's only going to be a file upload. They can have many attempts as they need. plagiarism review. Even though this is a draft, I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it in on. And I'm going to say not stored because, again, it's a draft. And I'm going to actually enable the grammar checker so that they get a little bit more help with some typical things for grammar. I'll get a bit of a due date, and then I would click save. So that's how you created a draft. And this would give the students the time they need if this is a new concept so that they can submit this. I can give them feedback, and then when they submit it the second time, you know, it also helps for me to see, well, did they apply the feedback that I gave to them, or did they just turn in the same assignment twice? So let's go back over, and now it is time for activity 4. All right, so again, this is exactly what we went through, and if you have time, you can go to the announcement in your module and talk about it, and then you could add an image or a Bitmoji that kind of personalizes that announcement. I'll give you 3 minutes. Ready, set, go. Hopefully you were able to find the ask a question discussion and import that into your sandbox so that your students have a place to ask those questions, and either you can answer or even other students can answer as well. So now we're going to talk about student to student. So which is better? group discussions or whole class discussions, formal and structured chats or icebreakers, Zoom class sessions. How are students going to collaborate with each other in this online environment? Google Docs are also a great way to do that. So more suggestions, live question sessions, feedback sessions, again, as mentioned before, and studio videos that students can share with each other, whether it be an introduction or a presentation or whatever you could think of. All right, let's go back to Canvas. I'm kind of rushing through this last piece because I want to get to active learning and I don't want to run out of time. All right, so this would be an activity that you could do. You could go and you could find a group project discussion in Canvas Commons and import that into your sandbox, set your groups, and decide how you're going to talk about your groups and how they're going to be used and what are their expectations. And that would be a conversation that you would want to have before you do all of this so that your students understand exactly what is required of them in the group and how they should be participating. And then of course you can also do your draft paper as a peer review. So of course if you wanted to do that, you could just go back into the assignment we already added and make that a peer review, and you could have, instead of you providing feedback on that draft, their classmates could. So you would just go back into the assignment and wait very patiently. And scroll all the way down until you get to peer reviews. And then just save. So you can do that so that your students have that ability to build those bonds online in group sessions, and you have groups available. You also have Google available. Students often find their own ways to create study groups. So you want to encourage those kinds of student-to-student interactions. And it shouldn't just be a student to content or a student to faculty. That student-to-student portion is extremely effective and very important in the online environment. So now we're going to keep on moving, and now we're going to talk about active learning. So what is it? Well, it's doing and observing, and it's exactly what we're doing in this webinar. I try to talk for about 10 minutes, and then I try to give you an activity that kind of helps to reinforce. Even if you don't get to complete the activity, you've at least had a chance to go and see what it is that you were asked to do and what was demonstrated for you. So here's some questions that you should think about when you're selecting an active learning strategy. What skill should my students be able to perform by the end of our online class session? What active learning strategy will allow my students to practice this skill? When will my students encounter and engage with information and ideas? And when will they reflect on what they've learned? So again, active learning is also that piece of reflection. You can't leave that part out. So you have to think about what it is they're doing, and then think about talking to them and asking them, well, what did you learn? You know, how did you learn? What did you, what did you come away with after you were finished with this module or activity or whatever it is? So here are some strategies, and there's a lot on these last slides, so I'm not going to read this to you at all. So think about polling, think, pair, share, minute paper, and there's more information there. There's small group discussions, short student presentations, empathy mapping, and even more. And I'm not going over all these, but each of those is listed, and there is a page of resources at the end of the slide presentation that has links to all of these activities or where you can find them. So now, looking at all of the active learning options, which one will you try first? So we went over a lot of them, and we are doing one. And I want to show you what other people in the webinar are saying. So here we have a word cloud and self-checks, concept mapping, scavenger hunts. Scavenger hunts are great, especially for, you can think about doing a syllabus scavenger hunt. You could also think about doing a campus resource, online campus resource scavenger hunt, where they had to go and find out where they could go to tutoring and where would they find information on online testing or things like that. And they have to complete these scavenger hunts that helps them figure out where things are and what they need to do. All right. So now we're to the oh my part, which is bringing it all together. Oh goodness, there we go. So now we're going to talk about putting all the parts together. So first we talked about last week, writing measurable objectives, and that is the base upon which everything is built. Or in this case, it is our electricity that turns on the light bulb. So today we talked about focusing the content and building the modules. And we also talked about activities that support the objectives. So again, we're not just picking activities because we like them. We're picking those activities because they tie into and align with the objective that we want our students to accomplish. So we had 492 people signed up for this webinar today, and I think we had 309-ish at the biggest, and that's a huge number, and I do appreciate you all very much. And I would like to know how we did, and all of us in the chat really do look at these survey results, and I'm going to take attendance in just a moment by putting a poll up for you. And you should have now had a poll pop up that you can answer. And I would like to say thank you all very much for coming. And again, the recording and slide deck will be found at edtech.vccs.edu/webinars. Probably Thursday, it should appear there. And when you get the slide deck, the last slide is a slide of resources that can help you with all of the ideas that we talked about today. Thank you again for coming, and I hope to see you again on Wednesday when we talk about LMS best practices for online courses.